Hi everybody, this is Jen from Scrap and Push, and I am here today with an Artistic Studio Creation Design Team project that is ASC Supplies on Etsy and AFCcraftsupplies.com. Both sites have the same stuff on them. Use Scrapping Posh 10 for a discount code 10% off your regular price items. And let's begin. I'm trying to make my tutorials a little easier to follow. So in order to do this, I pre-made an album. And in doing so, I think that I have succeeded in trying to figure out measurements and stuff as I go, and hopefully not mess up in the process, because when you're creating, mistakes happen. So this is an album that I made all from scraps, including chipboard. So the album I make won't be exactly the same as far as measurements go, but they will be using scraps of chipboard and pattern paper. I have lots of solid cardstock, so I just use solid cardstock as colors that I want. So I had 2 full sheets of this Voyages Fantastique, I think by Chavella. It could be Stamperia because I use them at the same time, and about half of the 6x6 pad to create this album. This particular album measures 5 3/4 by 5 and approximately an 8 or 5 1/4. And all the pages are the same, and we're going to make something similar. They have a flap and a small widget, I guess, just a small flap. I had 2x2 cut aparts. They all have a photo mat in the side pocket. On the back, they all have a large pocket. And you can see where I use the scraps of the scraps on these mats. But it'll be a really cute place to put a picture there. And then still have the mat. And then they all have a small tuck spot because I had these cute 3x2s from the 6x6 cut aparts. So each page is the same. So we'll just flip through it real quick. Again, I use scraps on the tags. And the tags, I never feel it quite necessary to mat the entire thing or mat them at all. Some of these only have 1 cut apart in them. And then there was even points that I had to piece together the mats, like this one, to get them to cover the entire page. With the parts that I had left over, I just made some large tags or mats. And I don't know that those are on every page, but so yeah, all the pages are the same, and I think it's a cute little album. This one I did mess up on the hinge a bit. It's kind of crooked. You can see here how crooked this is. It's probably a 1/4 inch down at the bottom, and there's hardly anything at the top. I compensated so that it would lay flat on the page if you do it this way. But if you know how these things work, when you put the page this way, it makes it crooked from the back. It's one of those things that if you don't make albums, you won't see it. The other thing in this album is that the pages are right up against, and then sometimes coming out of the actual page a little bit, anywhere from about an 1/8 inch. So that's something else that I'm going to fix in this album that I wasn't not sure what I was thinking when I did that. So let's get started. Again, I used scraps, and that included chipboard scraps. So I have 2 that are 5 3/4 by 4 7/8. Typically I don't use fractional chipboard, but today we do. I always like using the 2-inch spine because my hinge stays the same. So that's your chipboard, 2 at 5 3/4 by 4 7/8 if you're going to follow this exactly, and 1 2-inch spine. You can make it by 5. I got two 8.5 by 11 sheets of cardstock, and that's going to be for my covers. I got one sheet that matches that. That's 5.5 by 11. It would probably be best to do a 5.5 by 12, but I wanted it the same color as my cover. So in this instance, I only end up with a 3/4 on this side and a 1/2 inch on this side to tuck underneath my pages, but I think that'll be fine in this case. I've pre-scored this, but I will go over that with you. And then you'll also need some 12 by 12 pattern paper. I think it may be 8 to 12 sheets, so not too bad there. So speaking of the pages, let's go ahead and go through those. Almost all the pages are going to be the same, and then we can always add to them. I have 8 pages that are 4.5 by 11, and you're going to score those at 1/2 inch and 5.5 inches. And these pages are a little special because they fold onto themselves to make your page. So you don't have 2 pieces, you only have 1. Now when you do this, the thing about that is that you won't be able to easily access your tags if they go down in. So I recommend having some sort of punch. This punch is a 1.5 inch circle punch, but you can use any punch that you want. And then we have 8 flaps, which are measuring for 5.5 by 4.5. And you can just score that at a 1/2 inch on the long side. I have 8 pockets, and this is the big pocket on the back, so let's do this. This is going to be this pocket here. It's a good, decent sized pocket, and we're going to score that at a 1/2 inch and 5 inches. So you're leaving a 1/2 inch on both sides to put it on the page and get your pocket sides. And then these little tuck spots that are in these pockets, these here, conveniently came from the scraps from the original pages and flaps. So these are 2 inches long. They're already 2 inches long. Make them however wide rather. Make them however wide your scraps are. And because you're just tucking little things on there. And then I have mine cut at 4.5 inches, which will leave about a 1/2 inch on each side. And you score those at a 1/2 inch. And 4 inches, just leave a 1/2 inch on each side so you can glue those down. Now, we're going to do a little variation here. I had 3 inches of scraps left over from 4 pieces of the 12 by 12 cardstock. So I had 4 pieces that were 3 by 12. So what I decided to do on my album is make 4 bottom flaps that will fit, or I'm sorry, bottom pockets that will fit on these flaps going this way. So these are measuring 3 inches, which is what the scrap already was, by 5.5 inches. And there's only 4 of these because I only had 4 scraps. You can cut 12, but what I did was I made 4 that were 6.5 inches, and they're going to go on this page vertically. So we'll have half vertical flap tuck spots and half horizontal. So I thought that was pretty neat. The other thing that these tuck spots or these pockets allow you to do is use smaller scraps. If I had an entire sheet of, if I had a flap without a pocket, you need an entire 5.5 by 4 scrap. If I have this flap or this pocket on the flap, you only need a piece that is 5 minus the inside by like 3, and then you'll need a piece that's like 1 by 5 by 1. So that's a good way to use smaller scraps if you're running really low. So There's the flaps, so the horizontal pockets, mine measure, and you don't have to use my measurements, you can use your own, 5.5 by 3, and you score it 1/2 inch and 5 inches, leaving a 1/2 inch on both sides. And the vertical pockets for the flaps measure 3 by 6.5, and you score 1/2 by 6, leaving a 1/2 inch on each side. So those are the measurements and where you score. Your hinge, this is a hidden hinge, and this was originally by Kathy ordered probably like 7 years ago. So this is where this is my favorite kind of hinge. It has a lot of strength. If you're using an 11-inch piece of paper, you're going to end up using like a 3/4 and a 1/2 inch on one side. If you use a 12-inch piece of paper, you can start at 1 inch or 3/4 and end up with 1 inch or 3/4 on the other side. So depends on what you have. This should be fine for our application. So I am going to start, and it's 5.5 inches, but you want it however long your pages are. And I'm going to start scoring at 3/4 of an inch, and there are so many tutorials on this. And then you do a 1/2, a 1/2, and a 1/4, and you repeat that 8 times. So 3/4 of an inch, 1/2, 1/2, and a 1/4, 1/2, 1/2, and a 1/4, 1/2, 1/2, and a 1/4. I've gotten to the point where I started these, when I'm using a 12-inch, I'll start at 1, and I actually marked my board. 1/2, 1/2, 1/4, 1/2, 1/2, 1/4, 1/2, 1/2, 1/4. So just remember that, do it 8 times, you'll end up with a 1/2 inch at the end if you're using the 11-inch piece of paper. And then I'll show you how to fold this to make it a hinge. Okay everybody, so let's start with the spine. And basically I just folded every other, every 1/2 inch up, and then every 1/4 inch down. And then what you do is on the 1/2 inches that face each other, you put 1 strip of adhesive. And you can use score tape for this. I normally do, but I think this one's going to be just fine for the hinges to be just use the ATG. Now as far as putting the hinge on the book, you need to have score tape, or some people use liquid adhesive, but I prefer the score tape. I've heard there are some climates that the score tape doesn't do well, or yeah, it doesn't do well in. So just fold these up, each one. And I really should have done this the other way because that's going to show. So I'm going to have to cover that with something. And it's really going to show because it's on yellow. So basically just sticking the 1/2 inches together. And then I take my Tim Holtz scissors, and you can use any scissors, but these are really hefty and don't have any problems going through a couple layers of paper, and just cut at a 45-degree angle. And that is all that the hidden hinge is. I like the hidden hinge better because it is a single unit. It's more manageable. Than like the stack the deck hinge and stuff like that, but feel free to use whatever hinge system you want as long as you have 8 hinges. And then I just cut these at a diagonal, and what that's going to do is allow the pages to slide down on top. Okay. It's just easier for them to slide right over. And as I mentioned, I have a couple spots here that I have writing. I meant to put this on the back, I'm just going to cover it with some yellow washi tape. And you can still see it. I may have to paint it yellow. Because I surely don't want to do it again. This is white out. There we go. A little bit of white out, some yellow washi tape. That'll take care of it. And this one. And that was just telling me that I had 3/4 of an inch there. Alright. That should be okay. When I wrote on that hinge, I told myself I had to make sure that I folded it backwards. Okay, that is the hinge. And then let's go ahead and do the cover. And I just got 2 sheets of 8.5 by 11 paper. And because our chipboard is 4 7/8 wide, it's obviously not going to fit on one. So what I like to do to make my measurement, these are 2 different colors. It's just messing with my head. I got more over here because they do look like, yeah, those are both bright. Okay. I think I have just a different shade of yellow there. Okay, so let's do a measurement. Let's not do a measurement. Let's do an eyeball. So we're going to do about an inch, 3/4 of an inch to an inch here, 1/4 of an inch between each the spine and the covers. And then another 3/4 of an inch here. Slide those papers in. Give yourself about 3/4 of an inch on the other side. And you can see here, let me move it up so you guys can see it a little better. Here is where our paper is, and here. So what you want to do is you want to cut this back piece of paper, but you don't want your cut to be on the spine or anywhere near your, well, anywhere near your spine. You don't want to, definitely don't want it near your corners. So a good place to cut and glue back together is on your back cover, and you want to overlap it by about 1.5 inches. So if we cut this back cover here, we can overlap it 1.5 inches. We'll put score tape on the back of on the back of the back side of the paper and the back of the front side of the paper, and we'll make sure that those are adhered together really well. And then this piece of paper, the scrap that you get from here, we can just set aside for tags or what have you. Okay, so this is what we have then. And you can see that it does lay out perfectly, and you still have plenty of room to tape. We do need to take a little bit off the top, but we can do that. Well, let's go ahead and do that, because if it gets too long, I won't be able to do it on my trimmer. So let's do it probably, and I'm going to mark them both. I flatten them at the top and bottom, and we'll do it right there. And that's marking both pieces of paper, and that's where we're going to trim. And if you're a little off on this, it's not going to matter much, because this is going to be the inside of the book. Okay. Now, what I was trying to explain before I'm going to use 1/2 inch score tape. A lot of people like the 3/8 score tape, I hear, but I like the 1/2 inch and the 1/4 inch. Those are my preferences. And then I got a real nice 2.5 inch or 2 inch for the spine, which I love using because I always disliked filling the spine up with 1/2 inch score tape. It just took forever. So as I said before, we're going to tape on both sides, and then we're going to overlap it. And I have this line here, which I believe is where I want to overlap it. But before we stick it down, let's check. Here and here and here. If I overlap it beginning there, that's exactly what I want, okay? So let's peel this off. And this. And then I'm going to flip this one over since my mark is there. And just line it up top and bottom. If you line it up straight with the top and the bottom, the rest will be straight. I am a little off, but that's okay. And you can see that both seams, the first seam's here and the second seam here, it's not next to the spine. Okay, so fun we will have with going ahead and putting these covers. This is a 6-inch score tape, I think, and no, it's a 5-inch, and it's expensive, but it lasts forever, and it's the best adhesion that you're ever going to get on a cover. So get my scissors. I do think Crystal carries some bigger sizes. Whenever she gets her orders, she usually orders some. And I can fill that in with smaller. Alright, let's see if I can get this one a little closer. Probably not. I was going to say something. Well, I got a little closer. Not much. 5 inches is a good size. I pretty much buy score tape every time I place an order, just so I don't run out. The other thing I do is buy ATG tape in bulk. So it looks like I have like 3 boxes. Okay, so I'm just finishing off these covers. Sometimes I completely cover the spines or the covers, and then sometimes I just use ATG in the middle. I think that putting a frame of score tape and then putting ATG in the middle or spray adhesive works just fine too. Again, about 3/4 of an inch from the side. Try and make it like straight. And then we're going to put a 1/4 inch between the cover and spine. This is going to do 2 things. Spaces the spine so that you don't get too close to your covers and your paper splits. Sometimes paper splits anyways, you have to have a good quality paper. And then when you put your hinge on, you can put that right, you push your hinge into your spine there. And it serves for better adhesion, and your spine's less likely to pull out, which is exactly why you need strong adhesive. You get your entire book together and your spine falls out, you will splurge on score tape. So that doesn't happen. I've never had it happen because the first time somebody's like, oh, you need score tape, I went out and got score tape. But I have seen other people do it. And it is a sad, sad situation. Okay, miter our corners. Leave about an 1/8 inch. And there's people do this differently too. I've just now thought that I should probably try a different way to see if I like it, but I forgot. And then I go along the outside of the album, and I'm just going to use 1/2 inch here, and then I'll go along the inside with my 1/4 inch. Super fast. These are pretty close. I may not have to go. I'm gonna go ahead and peel this up. And just 1/4 inch because the 1/2 inch covers the rest of it. Here. And here. Okay. Super simple. Fold down. Use the cover to crease and then peel. It doesn't matter if you do long side or short side first. Everybody I've ever seen does long side. So then you just push up. This is some thick paper. And what I was telling you before, about that tape, you just work your spine right down, or your cover right down into that tape. Uh-oh. A little issue sticking to the chipboard there. Not a problem. This side, do the same, work that down in there, and then do this, whoops, drop it on the floor, and that, and that, okay, and then we just make sure we got a good stick. Corners came out really nice on this one. As long as you don't have too much left over. This one's just a little big. I can just push that down in there. Okay, looks good. The other thing the score tape is going to do is it's going to give you a little bit of flexibility. Alright, next is the hinge. Put the hinge in. go. It's covered, and then this piece I just had kind of laying around. I think I cut it a little too long. I'll trim that off. Isn't that nice? Like, I'll pay extra for that. Putting 8 million pieces of score tape on your spine is not fun. Okay, when you're ready to stick it down. This one overlapped a little bit, so I'm just gonna I think this was actually a piece of the 5.5 inch. That was a little too big. Okay. Then, hardest part of the mini album, probably the most critical. At least it's hard for me. I stand up. Oof. Stand up. You want to line this hinge up and this hinge up, here and here and here, and then the top here and here. You want it to be straight. Nothing sticking out of the bottoms or top, so you want it to be just even. Alright, I think I got it. First thing I do is push the middle down, and then the second. That yellow washi tape that I put on is holding up really well. The other thing you could do if you ever do that is paint it with acrylic paint. And then find your spine, your between your cover and your spine, and push your spine piece down into those creases. The easiest spine you're ever gonna do, right there. Okay, so now we're gonna put some pages together. I've already given you the dimensions of the pages, so I'm just gonna show you how I put them together. This is the base page, 4.5 by 11.5, scored at 1/2 inch and 5.5 and 11 inches, right? And on your 1/2 inch, you just adhere, flip that over. That's your base page. Okay. And then we're going to set the tuck pockets aside because your page has to be matted before you put this on. We're going to do a pocket, and this one's 5.5 by 4, scored at 1/2 inch on both sides. And this I want on the back, which is fine here. And you can use score tape if you're worried about your pages coming off. I think mine will be okay. And run some liquid adhesive down at the bottom. I use Scotch Quick Dry, or I think it's glitter glue. Those are my two favorite. Okay, big pocket. There we go. Flip it over, and you have a 5.5 by 4.5 flap, scored at 1/2 inch on the long side. I'm just using ATG again, and you want to make sure that your pocket is up, and you're going to put this on the inside. If you put the flap on the outside, when you close your book, the flap is going to run into the page opposite, so you'll have to put a closure on it, which is fine. You can always do that. Okay, so now I have two pages here exactly the same because I have two different flaps to add, and I wanted to show you both of them. I had this as a flap for the pockets, but I cut them too long. I should have cut them at, it looks like 5 by 3. I cut them at 5.5 by 3, and I don't feel like recutting them. So I'm going to go ahead and make it a pocket on the other side of this page, which means that both sides of the page will have a pocket, but I'm okay with that. Okay. Again, wet glue on the bottom so that your tags don't stick. And the only thing you have to do is make sure that your pocket doesn't get too close to this fold that it makes it not want to close. You do not want to prevent that from closing. Okay, so that's one page style with the pocket. Remember, we cut the two from the leftovers of the other one, your long pocket here, your long flat pocket. So that's one page design. Your second page design, because this album only has two, is this long vertical pocket, which is 6.5 by 3, scored at 1/2 inch on each side. Again, same thing. And wet glue on the back. And I'm going to put this towards the spine of the book. Okay, so there's our 2-page designs. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is pick our paper. Now, I am using scraps from this Tropical Paradise collection, Lost in Paradise from Graphic 45, and I did a significant size mini album with this collection. I had the 12 by 12s, solids and patterns, and the 8 by 8. All I have left for my 12 by 12s are here. I have nearly a full 8 by 8, not too bad. I have some die cuts and journaling tags, and even some cuts from the actual collection. I have some stickers, but most excited about my scraps. So just to give everybody an overlook of the project, this was done all with scraps with the exception of the cardstock. I have lots of cardstock. I used the Lost in Paradise collection from Graphic 45. And this is an artistic studio creation design team project. ASC Supplies on Etsy and ASCcraftsupplies.com. Basically, they're the same. Trying to transition into our own website, or her own website. This is the chipboard was also made from scrap. I have it is about 5 3/4 by 5. Again, I just used what I had. I went through all my chipboard and sorted it out. I had 16 albums worth of scraps of chipboard, so that'll be fun to finish those up. What I have left, I still have more. I made a giant album with this using the Graphic 45 pre-made album, and then I made this one. I still have some journaling tags. I have almost an entire 8x8 collection, and I had everything. I had the 12x12, the 12x12 patterns and solids, the journaling tags, and the stickers. I don't think I got the chipboard. I have just like 5 stickers left, and so this is what I have left. Now I threw everything away that was smaller than 2x2. I kept some of them because I'm going to do a pocket letter or 9 sets of ATC cards. So I give away most of my albums, and I thought it would be a neat idea if I had some paper representing each album that I made, so that I don't miss it too much. So this one differs just a tiny bit from my original. There is a small tag on a side vertical pocket on every other page, and then you have this is a half matted tag. These are neat to put small pictures over here, or if you use a smaller strip, just to put a picture over there and then some journaling. So it looks funny without anything on it, but it adds something I think neat. Really easy way to do your pocket pages is just to mat it and then take a punch and punch out a thumb grip. Every page has this big pocket on the back, journaling tag, and then I made a small pocket tuck spot with some 2x2, and of course you can mat the back of that too. And then these were some of the 8x8 cut aparts that I had already done that were just in my pile. Put some of the journaling cards in here, 3x4, and a bigger mat. And this is every other page, so 4 of these pages with this pocket. Originally it was supposed to be on the flap, but I messed up the measurement, so I just changed it. And again, for the pocket, I just used my circle punch halfway and punched a thumb hole in the pocket page. So that way you can make the pocket page from one piece of paper. I mean, there's ways to do it otherwise too, but this one just has a 2x2 and a 2x2 little booklet. This was just a scrap of paper, so I thought, well, we could just add some color. I used some of the journaling tags there. Most of them were from the cut apart from the paper though. I had one cut apart, 12x12 cut apart left. This is just a 2x2. And a large tag. There's that one. This tag I matted because I had enough paper and because it was on a solid background. And you can add, you know, strips of paper and stuff to decorate your pages. This one I used a sticker on. There's a border strip on that one. big tags, some 4x6, and these journaling cards, of course, have the image on the back, but it's very the pocket's very busy, so I just use the plain side of that. There we go. So yeah, I use some, maybe use some cardstock, this bright yellow and blue that I typically don't use because I use my black and white a lot. Black, white, and cream. So yeah, I thought this was a good project, and then I just layered this cut apart on the back just to give the back something. You can always write something, a dedication or whatever there, or put some little pictures. So there's my tropical, oh, I'm sorry, Lost in Paradise book. Very similar to this one that I also did with scraps. Similar in construction, but very different also in the way that it looks. So I hope you guys enjoy the tutorial on this, and we'll see you next time. Hang out, see how I use my scraps and the new stuff that I got that I am just dying to get into. Thanks a lot. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Use Scrapping Posh 10 at checkout on ASC Craft Supplies for 10% off your regular price purchase. If you have any questions, just ask them upon checkout. We'll see you later. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.